Scientists criticized Trump administration's climate report as misleading. In a striking critique, scientists have denounced a recent climate report from the Trump administration as a farce, filled with misleading information. This report, which aims to support a significant rollback of environmental protections, has raised eyebrows among experts who argue it is riddled with inaccuracies. On Tuesday, the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, revealed plans to reverse the 2009 endangerment finding. This crucial ruling empowers the agency to regulate greenhouse gas emissions from vehicles, power plants, and various industrial sources. Just hours later, the Department of Energy, DOE, released a 150-page document defending this proposal, asserting that the scientific alarm regarding climate change is exaggerated. Energy Secretary Chris Wright stated in the report's introduction, "Climate change is a challenge, not a catastrophe." However, renowned climate scientist Michael Mann likened the report's content to what one might expect if a chatbot were trained solely on the top 10 climate denial websites funded by the fossil fuel industry. The DOE's report was published shortly after the EPA's announcement regarding the rollback of the 2009 ruling, which has been a cornerstone for regulating climate-related pollution under the Clean Air Act. If this rollback is finalized, it could dismantle nearly all climate regulations in the United States. In a Fox News interview, Wright claimed that the report counters what he described as the cancel culture that suppresses scientific discourse. In contrast, Naomi Oreskes, a Harvard University professor specializing in the history of science and climate misinformation, argued that the report's real aim is to rationalize a scientifically indefensible failure to regulate fossil fuels. Oreskes emphasized, science is the foundation for climate regulation, and now they are attempting to substitute legitimate science with pseudoscience. This attack on the research supporting the endangerment finding, which asserts that greenhouse gases pose a threat to public health and welfare, aligns with Trump's pro-fossil fuel agenda, often summarized as drill, baby, drill. Rachel Cletus, a director at the Union of Concerned Scientists and a contributor to the 6th U.S. National Climate Assessment, remarked, "This is an agenda to promote fossil fuels, not to safeguard public health or the environment." When questioned about the claims of misinformation in the new report, DOE spokesperson Ben Bieterich responded, stating, "This report critically evaluates numerous areas of ongoing scientific inquiry that are often assigned high confidence levels, not by the scientists themselves, but by political entities like the United Nations or previous administrations." However, the UN's Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, is widely regarded as the authoritative source on climate science. Having compiled a comprehensive report through the collaboration of a vast international team of scientists, which has undergone rigorous peer review and received endorsement from every national government. The latest synthesis report from the IPCC, released 2 years ago, involves 721 volunteer scientists and unequivocally states that human activities have caused global warming, leading to widespread negative impacts on both nature and human populations. In stark contrast, the Trump administration's report was produced by 5 selected scientists, whose views are considered fringe or contrarian by the broader scientific community, and it did not undergo peer review. The authors of the report have previously denied being climate deniers, and the DOE did not respond to inquiries about the authorship. Zeke Hausfather, a research scientist at Berkeley Earth, criticized the report, stating this document had 5 authors and was hastily compiled over 4 months. It would not meet the standards of any conventional scientific peer review process. Wright maintained that he did not influence the report's conclusions, while Judith Curry, one of the authors, expressed in a blog post her hope that the document would steer climate science away from alarmism and advocacy. Mainstream climate scientists have condemned the report's findings as distorted and misleading. Natalie Mahalwald, a climate scientist at Cornell University, remarked, "This is a report authored by a couple of scientists who are outliers in their arguments regarding climate change. This document does not diminish the value of previous assessments. Rather, it cherry-picks literature to create a false impression of a new review." Mehlwald pointed out that the absence of peer review indicates that the report is clearly not as robust as the IPCC report or the U.S. government's periodic national climate assessment, which the Trump administration has recently removed from public access. The latest national climate assessment, produced by a coalition of government agencies and external scientists in 2023, concluded that the impacts of human-induced climate change are already extensive and worsening across all regions of the United States. Andrew Dessler, a climate researcher at Texas A&M University, noted that if any other group of scientists had been selected, the report would have been significantly different. He stated, "The only way to produce this report was to choose these specific authors." Hausfather concurred, asserting that while the author's work may reflect their personal views, it does not align with the broader scientific consensus on climate change. He was among the scientists whose research was cited in the report. The new paper includes a chart from a 2019 report he led, which the authors claim demonstrates that climate models have consistently overestimated atmospheric carbon observations. However, Hausfather's research actually indicated that climate models have performed well. He explained, "They seem to have disregarded the entire paper because it did not fit their narrative, instead selecting a single figure from the supplementary materials to cast doubt on the models, even though the full paper confirmed their accuracy in the years following publication." The DOE did not respond to requests for comments regarding Hausfather's concerns. Hausfather noted that this selective approach to research appears to be a recurring theme throughout the report, stating, "They cherry-pick data points that support their narrative while excluding the vast majority of scientific literature that contradicts it." Dessler emphasized that scientists have a responsibility to engage with all evidence, even if it challenges their initial beliefs, warning that ignoring this principle can amount to scientific misconduct. He remarked, "The report they produced should be viewed as a legal brief from attorneys defending their client, carbon dioxide. Their objective is not to evaluate the evidence impartially, but to construct the strongest possible case for CO2's innocence." The lack of peer review in the administration's report has led to conclusions that diverge, sometimes dramatically, from established scientific literature. Many of its assertions are based on long-debunked studies that have been promoted by climate deniers, according to Mann. He stated, "These are tired, decades-old, discredited talking points from climate deniers, now presented as if they are part of a new set of revelations. The difference is that this time, it carries the endorsement of the EPA and the federal government." For example, the report claims that warming trends have been exaggerated, despite overwhelming evidence to the contrary. This assertion comes at a time when extreme heat is impacting millions of Americans. Mann expressed frustration, saying, "They are literally asking us to disregard what we observe with our own eyes and instead accept their denialist narrative that not only dismisses the science, but also contradicts what is plainly visible if you look outside your window." The authors also assert that ocean acidification is occurring within the bounds of natural variability and is beneficial for marine life, despite the fact that current ocean acidity levels are the highest they have been in 14 million years, a period associated with a major extinction event. Additionally, the report references the supposed health of Australia's Great Barrier Reef, claiming it has shown significant growth in recent years. This assertion comes in the wake of the reef experiencing its sixth mass bleaching event since 2016, a devastating occurrence for corals that leads to whitening and potential death due to elevated sea temperatures. Notably, no widespread bleaching events were recorded on the reef prior to 1998. Bob Kopp, a climate scientist at Rutgers University, described the report as tedious and at times truly wearisome. Kopp recently contributed to a study indicating that rising temperatures and drought conditions will negatively affect crop yields, which contradicts the report's claims that crops will thrive with increased atmospheric carbon dioxide. He stated, carbon dioxide fertilization is largely irrelevant to how increasingly extreme heat and intense drought will impact crop yields. As a former Department of Energy fellow, I feel embarrassed by this report. Trump's climate change report. Scientists expose the lies and manipulation. Serious misuse of my research. Climate scientists say new Trump energy report botches their work climate environment. https:/climate environment. Our work has no relevance, said James Ray, an astrobiologist whose research was cited in the administration's climate change report, about the report's interpretation of his work. One of the authors of this report called him personally to write it. The report downplays the harms of climate change. MarkSchiefobine.ap. A new report from the Trump administration casts significant doubt on the risks of climate change, citing scientists' studies from major research institutions around the world. At least 10 of those scientists told Notice that the report misrepresents their findings and research. This is a serious misuse of my research, said James Ray, a climate researcher at the University of St. Andrews, about the report's interpretation of his work. As I hope you can see, it was taken out of context, said Suk-Young Lee, an atmospheric scientist at Pennsylvania State University, about the report's use of her research.